So take a look at number 48 from your homework from last time. This is an interesting one because let's think about what we learned so far. When you have something like this, it's got 4 terms. First of all, does it have GCF? You should always check that. No. So it's got 4 terms. You know, I told you to group them by 2s, correct? Right? This one turns out if you group them by 2s, okay, it's not going to work. It's not. You're not going to be able to factor out and be able to factor the whole thing. You could kind of factor this, but it's not factored completely. It won't be factored completely. So what you could do on this one is you could group by 3s. Okay, so which 3 terms do you think? First of all, let's just take a look at which first. So if I'm going to group them by 3s, those 3 terms, right, must be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, right? Because whenever you have 3 terms, which term do you think I'm going to choose? Clear?
X to the 4th, x to the 2nd, and 4x.
Oh, so you want me to group the first 3 terms like that? That's not going to be helpful because if you do, you're not going to be able to factor that trinomial. Because it does have a factor of x, but you're going to have x to the 3rd, and then x, and then 4. It's not in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c, would it? So guess what? It's not going to be the first 3, it's going to be the last 3 terms. You understand? So let's group the last 3 terms. So this is group by 3. So we haven't learned that, but if the group by 2s don't work, right? That's the thing you're gonna try. You're gonna group them by 3. So, like I said before, x to the 4th. Now here's a minus. So it's going to be minus. It's going to be in parentheses. What do you think it's going to be in here? X squared. Would it be plus 4x or minus 4x? It'd be minus 4x, wouldn't it? Because you have a negative out in front, right? And then would it be plus 4 or negative 4? Plus 4. Be careful here, okay? It'd be plus 4. If you don't believe me, we'll distribute the negative 1 in, right? Negative 1 times x squared, you get negative x squared. Negative 1 times 4x, you get positive plus 4x, and then you get negative 4 at the end, don't you? Okay, now look at that trinomial. Is that trinomial something you could factor? Yeah, you see, that's the trick. Okay, so if factoring by 2s don't work, try factoring by 3s, and then you those 3 terms you want to get has to be in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Does that make sense? So it factors, doesn't it? So we get x to the 4th minus something. We know it's going to be x plus something and x plus something, right? What do you think we'll need? This is sort of easy. Yeah, negative 2 and? Yeah, negative 2 and negative 2. So it becomes simply x to the 4th minus x minus 2 squared. Have I factored this thing? Not really. But, anybody see what we get once you have this? Yeah. It's a difference of square, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't this something square minus something square? What is your a in this case? What is your a in this case? Squared. This is difference of square, isn't it? X squared is your a, isn't it? What's your b? X. What's your b, guys? X minus 2. Isn't that your b? Right? Do you guys see this? Yeah. Isn't your a x squared and then isn't your b x minus 2? Correct? So this is difference of square. So what do you get? Well, what does difference of square give you? It becomes a plus what? B, which is x minus 2, times what? A, which is x squared what? Minus, what's your b? X minus 2. Isn't that right? Hello? Okay, so we shouldn't leave it this way because inside the parentheses there's still parentheses, right? You should simplify this, and when you do that you get x squared plus x minus 2 here, x squared minus x plus 2. Isn't that plus 2? Because, right? Do you see why it's plus 2? Because you have a negative out in front of the parentheses. Correct?
Yeah.
Alright, so am I done?
Yeah.
Not quite. Why not? Because look what's inside the parentheses. Yeah.
Oh, there.
Not quite. Huh. Well, you have a trinomial. You should always check and see if you could factor those trinomials, right? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Which one of these trinomials do you think will factor? Yes. The first one. What do you think? Let's see. Let's see if the first one factors. It's got to be x plus something. X plus something. What do you think will work? Yeah, it won't work actually. This one doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't factor. But the last one, do you think the last one will factor?
Yes.
The last one will factor. What do you think you will need, guys?
2 negatives.
You think you're gonna need 2 negatives?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Wait, yeah.
Negative what?
Negative 2 and 1.
Well, actually, the first one does work, doesn't it? This one doesn't work. I said it wrong. Oops.
Yeah, I'm so confused.
No, Carolyn. Does the first trinomial factors? I said it wrong. The last one doesn't factor, but the first one does, right? How does it factor, guys? Anybody see it?
Positive 2 and negative
Positive
1.
2, negative 1. Yeah, this one factors. Not this one though. Does it factor? We looked at it. It doesn't, does it? Can you figure out a number that you could plug in here so that when you multiply vertically, you get 2, but then when you do the cross, you get negative 1? Is it possible? No, this one doesn't work. So what's the answer? The first trinomial factors, Claire, what's the answer?
X plus 2, x minus 1,
Mm-hmm.
and then x squared minus x plus 2.
Exactly. So that's the answer for number 48. Okay, any question? Does this make sense? So if you have, if grouping by 2 doesn't work, okay, 90% of the time it will, but when it doesn't, try to look for that grouping by 3, okay, and that trinomial should factor. Okay, any question? Does this make sense? All right, let's do one more. This is, I know that it's up there, but let's look at number 30 again because some people were still having trouble. Number 30 is sort of interesting because x squared minus 2x minus 4y squared minus 4y. This has 4 terms. Again, first of all, it doesn't have any GCF. Okay. So what do you think we're going to do? We're going to group them by 2's, right? When I group them by 2's, just blindly this way, be careful, this is going to be 4y squared plus 4y, isn't that right? Does this help? Is this helpful? I could factor out what from the first term? X minus 2 minus, what can I factor out from the last term? 4y, can I not? Isn't that my GCF? So I get what? Y plus 1. But look, is this helpful? Can you, is there any GCF? No, so it doesn't work. So should we look for the grouping by 3's in this case? No, because it won't work. Because even if you group them by 3's, because you have 2 variables, your middle term has to have how many variables? 2. So guess what? This one I already told you. So it doesn't work this way. Guess what? They kind of got tricky. You have to change the order. You don't have to just you know sometimes you have to get first and the third. Group the first and the third term and second and the fourth term. Not first 2 and the last 2. So how would you do that? Well, we could rewrite this as x squared. Instead of minus 2x, what can I write? Negative 4y squared, and then minus 2x minus 4y. Aren't they equivalent? Right? Now, do you see how they're equivalent here to here? I just change the order of I just switch those around. Because aren't these really plus negative 2x plus negative 4y squared? Isn't that right? Yes? And I could change the order when you change it to it's an addition, right? Isn't that what we get? Hello? Okay, when we do this, it gets really nice because it becomes really nice when you group by 2's. X squared minus 4y squared, right? Group them. And then here, minus, what do we get? Is it negative 2x or positive 2x?
Positive 2x.
Okay, what about, is it negative 4y or positive? Is it minus 4y or plus 4y? Plus 4y. Okay, now when we group them this way, what's my GCF from the first term? Do I have any GCF? No. Uh-oh. What do we do? Because isn't that what we're looking for? Isn't that why we group them by 2s? Try to factor out the GCF. But even though it doesn't have any GCF, I claim to you that we can factor this binomial. How so? Anybody see it, Patty?
Difference of squares.
Yeah, it's a difference of squares, isn't it? Right? How is this a difference of square? What is it? What's your A?
Or x.
X. What's your B?
Something
2y. Isn't that your B? Because 2y times 2y gives you 4y squared. Isn't that right? Minus, well, this one, does it have a GCF? The second one? Yes. It has a GCF of 2, doesn't it? So you get x plus 2y. Correct? So look at this difference of square. Let's see whether we can factor this. We get x, what? Plus 2y times what? X minus 2y. Minus 2 times x plus 2y. Now, this is sort of nice. Why do I say this is nice, guys? You have a greatest common factor. You see the greatest common factor? Now, that's what we were trying to hope to do, right? After you factor, you get a greatest common factor. So we get x plus 2y as your GCF. What's left? X minus 2y minus 2. And of course, you could rewrite this a little bit simpler. You don't want to leave it like this. You want to write x plus 2y. Even if you're factoring inside the parentheses, you want to simplify. X minus 2y minus 2. By the way, that's a trinomial, isn't it? Is that factorable trinomial? No, it's not in the form of ax squared plus 2. Yeah, it's not in that form, is it? So there's your answer. Does that make sense? So those two problems were a little bit interesting than the other ones, but that's how you do that. Any questions? Do you think you could do something like this for your homework tonight? Okay, so try grouping them by 2s, but sometimes realize that you might have to rearrange them. Okay? Of course, when you rearrange them, you gotta be careful. Okay? Change everything to addition. That would be the best way. Any question? And even after you rearrange them, and if it doesn't factor, then guess what? You're gonna group them by. How many terms are you going to group them by? Even after you, group them by 3s. Does that make sense? So after you try rearranging them and grouping them by 2s, if that doesn't work, you gotta try to group them by 3s. Are we good? That's when you have full terms, right? Okay. Any questions? All right.